Imagine this, a world filled up with the weak, each one wielding power beyond what most can even comprehend. Look around you. Most people don't even recognize the strength they hold. Like sheep parading as lions, they stumble through life, blind to their own potential. But who am I to judge who deserves power and who doesn't? Strength is still strength, no matter how unaware one may be. But I have to ask, are you weak? Let me guess. You think power comes easy, that all it takes is raw ambition. Well, kid, let me tell you a little story. Jackson, like any other kid in his world, craved childishly for the top peak of his world, where warriors were praised for their victories and fame. But unlike the rest, he was born with a power others could only dream of. The ability to manipulate energy at will. It was a gift that made him untouchable, a force to be reckoned with. And in a world where strength reigned supreme, Jackson had no choice but to believe that power was all that mattered. From a young age, he excelled at everything, convinced that strength alone would give him everything he sought: control, happiness, peace. But as the years passed and the victories piled up, something began to gnaw at him. With battles won and rivals defeated, a growing emptiness started to form inside him. He had been chasing power for so long, yet it wasn't filling some kind of void within him. To him, he thought,
maybe, just maybe, my power isn't enough.
Still, Jackson pressed on like a relentless cheetah. He became a warrior unlike any other, unstoppable and feared by all. His name was whispered with awe, and those around him either envied him or clung to him for protection. But no one truly understood him. How could they? His strength had already become a prison, separating him from everyone else. There was one person who never envied him, though: Sophie. She had no extraordinary strength, no natural gifts. Everything she had, she earned with an overwhelming obsession, which made her a close ally to Jackson. One day, after another one of Jackson's victories, Sophie asked him,
I've always wondered, what do you fight for, Jackson?
Her question rattled him. What do I fight for? He had never thought about it. All he had ever known was the pursuit of power. For the first time, to her surprise, he didn't have an answer. That question stuck with him like a curse. No matter how many more battles he fought, no matter how many enemies he crushed, Sophie's words haunted him. What was he fighting for? He had power, more than anyone could dream of, and yet it all felt hollow. He told himself that the next victory would give him the peace he craved, the satisfaction that was always just out of reach. But it never came. Years passed, and Jackson found himself standing at the peak of the world. He had defeated every rival, subdued every threat, and now there was no one left to challenge him. He had it all: fame, power, glory. The world was his for the taking. For a brief moment, he believed he had reached the pinnacle of his existence. But then the weight of reality crashed down on him. The peace that followed was suffocating. It felt empty, just like all the victories before it. Soon after, the world he thought he had conquered began to unravel. The people who had once admired him, those he had fought to protect, began to turn on him. They no longer saw Jackson as a hero. They feared him. They whispered behind his back, calling him a tyrant who had lost his way, blinded by his pursuit of strength. And just like that, his power, his ultimate prize, became a curse. He had ignored the truth for so long, but now it was staring him in the face. His greatest battle was not with some external enemy, but with the emptiness inside him, the souls of those he could have saved, the dreams he could have protected, reminding him of everything he had sacrificed in the name of power. And so, Jackson ran, not from an enemy, but from himself. He fled to the mountains, far away from the world he once ruled, with nothing but his wife and child by his side. Years and years and years passed by, and now Jackson was on his deathbed. He was not the man he once was. His body, once unbreakable, now lay shattered, not by an enemy's hand, but by the crushing weight of his own regrets. His wife was gone. His children lived their own lives, and the power he had spent his entire life chasing had abandoned him. As death crept closer, Jackson had one final revelation. Maybe I shouldn't have run so blindly forward. Maybe strength wasn't enough after all. With his last breath, he scribbled a note.
If I were to be reborn, I'd want to be a farmer. With my power, imagine how many people I could feed. Or maybe an adventurer. Just think of the places I could discover. All I want to say before I go is this. Don't just run blindly toward the top. Find your dream and follow it as you go.
Tears fell from his eyes as he laid back and closed them for the last time. Jackson, the strongest, the mightiest, the most feared, faded away into nothing. His name, once shouted in the streets, became a distant whisper in the wind, forgotten by the very world he once ruled. As Jackson's story faded into legend, one lesson remained. Power without purpose is emptiness. True power must be pursued relentlessly, but with meaning. Without purpose, it becomes a burden, a curse. When tied to something greater, though, it becomes unstoppable. Most fail by chasing strength for its own sake, not realizing true fulfillment comes when power serves something bigger. Jackson learned that too late. But you still have time. So I ask you now, what will your power stand for?